And I think that's where the role of like the school counselor comes into play so much.
Right.
Is like they really need to help guide you. And unfortunately, what I've found is that a lot of the school counselors are not well versed in working with first gen students.
No.
They don't know the struggles that we go through. They
Right.
don't know.
Life experiences. Yeah.
Right. They don't know. Like, I'll give you I think like the most real example that has happened recently. I have a high school senior who has not been able to apply for her financial aid.
Right.
Because she's documented and her parents are not.
Right.
And
right. Hello, I'm Tijani Musa.
And I'm Yazmin Musa, and this is how we're doing it.
Welcome to our How We're Doing It. Here we share stories about our journey and experiences of being first-generation college graduates, our family, buying our first home, moving across the country, and living a debt-free lifestyle. We do so in an authentic, fun, and educational way to help other first-generation immigrants with similar paths. So tell me, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about all the things you need to know. Well, probably a lot of the things. Maybe not all of them.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Things you need to know as a first-generation kid.
Yeah.
We say kid because we're going to be talking about different stages.
Yeah.
Like when you're in high school, when you're in college, and then when you're an adult. Okay? Adulting.
Okay. I think like these are like survivor things or etiquettes that you just need to know as you navigate through life.
Yes. Yes.
If you don't know them, it could cost you money, or it could just put you in a situation where you're just confused. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah, and a lot of these I feel like are things that you really don't know until you're there. And it happens to you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, crap, I learned the hard way.
Yeah. It's like an experience thing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yep. You ready to do it?
Yes.
All right. So how do you want to start off? What are you thinking? What do you have in your mind?
Okay,
when you were, what stage is this? Like when you experienced this, and what is it?
Well, I'm going to start with high school.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I have high school students and they just went to prom in the past couple weeks. And this literally came up in one of my sessions. I was meeting with a student and I was like, hey, like, how is prom? Let me see photos, all the things, right?
Uh-huh.
She's like excited, telling me about it, And then she's like, I was really shocked that the food at the prom was like the smallest like appetizers. She's like, they were just like teeny like bites. And I don't think she knew that before prom you should go get dinner.
Right.
Like you shouldn't expect a dinner at prom. But like I was like, maybe nobody talked with her. Like
no.
I do know she's first gen, so I was like, okay, like I don't think anybody informed her that she really needed to eat a good meal either at home or she needed to go get dinner before prom, because otherwise she's gonna be so hungry. That dance is so long.
It is long. It's an all-night thing. I remember that.
It's like a whole evening thing, because think about it. If you're going to take, you're getting ready, and then if you're going to take pictures, and then after pictures, then you're actually getting to the dance, or if you're fitting like a meal in between there, that's great.
Yeah. I
don't think she knew that.
It's crazy though, because I'm thinking like, was she the only one that experienced this, or all of her friends group experienced this? It's crazy.
I don't know. I did ask. I was like, who did you go with? She went with a family member, cousin.
Okay.
She said her and her cousin both thought that the appetizers were just the smallest little things.
Man, it's tough. It's a hard one, because it's possible that she didn't know, but it's also possible that she just don't have the money to go to dinner before the event.
Exactly. And so I didn't say anything, at the moment. I was just like, it usually tends to be just like very light things.
Right.
They kind of expect that you've eaten before the event.
Right. That's a good one. Wow.
Yeah, but I was like, if you are first gen, nobody's really going to explain to you that prom is really just a dance.
Right.
And I know at our prom we had like very light appetizers, more like desserts. What about you guys?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, there wasn't any big meals or anything like that. We did like the eating out and everything like that, and then also taking pictures and all those things before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is another student that I have multiple high schoolers, and I love chatting with them about life. Another one told me that she was like, "Oh, we took so long getting ready that we didn't get to take photos because I asked to see photos. Of course, me
Oh
being
God.
my chismosa self, I
Yes.
want to see the photos.
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh, let me see photos. She's like, oh, I actually only have one that my mom took really quickly as she was dropping me off. And I was like,
Wow.
really? She was like, yeah, oh, we were supposed to go do like a whole photo shoot, but one of my friends took a really long time getting ready. And I was like, no, no, no. Then you go without your friend. Screw
That's
her.
right.
She
That's
decided
right.
to take too late.
That's right. She
Too
could take
long,
Uber there.
Yes. I was so upset. She's like, yeah, my mom just took this one of me as she was dropping me off at somebody's house. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, you're supposed to do a photo shoot. That way you always have photos and you remember.
That's right. It's important. You got to get them photos, just like the food.
Then I also, so just exactly last weekend, it was another high school's prom, and Jasleen and I had met up with a friend, and we were just leaving dinner, and I saw a lot of the kids being dropped off, and it was the same thing. They were all just taking photos outside of the venue,
Right.
which I guess I didn't really expect. I thought kids knew, like, go to a cute spot to take photos.
Yeah.
Like, the venue itself might not be the cutest thing.
Right.
So.
Right. Like, do your research beforehand. You should know the spot that you're going to take pictures, so you could be there on time, and then also take beautiful photos.
Yeah.
You have more prom things to talk about.
I'm very passionate about prom, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, but now I think we should move on. Do you have anything else on prom?
I mean, like, I remember you were telling me a story that when you mentioned prom to your parents.
Oh, yeah. So the promposal.
Yeah,
okay,
they didn't know.
So, you get traditionally, someone needs to ask you to go to prom with them, right?
That's right.
And so I remember when I was asked, I came home and I told my parents that my boyfriend at the time had asked me to prom.
Right.
And they just laughed. They were like, oh, ha, ha, ha. That's funny. And I was like, what's funny? Is it like the way that he asked me to prom, or what's funny?
Yeah.
And I don't know, in my head, I was like, are they laughing at the way he asked about it? And I even explained, like I explained in detail, oh, we went to dinner and then he asked on the dessert, like he had the waitress have like write prom on a plate, ? And I thought it was cute. I thought it was sweet. Obviously I said yes, right?
Right.
And my parents were just laughing about it. So my feelings were hurt. And I was like, I don't get it. Why are you guys laughing? And they were like, well, why would he do that? Like, that's silly. And I was like, no, but you're supposed to get asked to prom.
Yes.
But they were like, but this is your boyfriend. We just assumed you were going with him.
Right.
And I'm like, well, yes, but I can't just assume I'm going to show up with him if he doesn't ask me to go.
Exactly.
And so
that's another one right there.
It was this thing where my parents didn't go to school here.
Right.
They didn't know that to go to prom, you're supposed to have somebody ask you.
It's a big deal.
And it's a big deal, yeah. Like, even with like homecoming too, like homecoming proposals are also a big deal.
Right. Of course. People break up over proms, over homecoming proposals, because if people don't get asked, they will get very angry and mad, and relationships end.
You don't ask me the right way.
That's right.
Or if you don't make it cute enough.
That's right.
Or
you gotta outdo somebody.
Reasons.
Yeah, you gotta outdo somebody. You gotta outdo your friends.
Exactly.
It's funny that your parents laugh. They just assume that.
They just assumed,
hey,
and they thought it was cheesy.
This
that
is
I
your
was
boyfriend
asked.
already. Yeah.
They thought it was so cheesy that I was asked over dessert, and I thought it was the cutest thing. And they're over here laughing about it. And then I explained it, and they were like, well, you didn't say that from the beginning. You didn't say that this was like a tradition that you're supposed to get asked. And I was like, well, I didn't think I needed to. It was too funny.
Man, the things that our families don't know about these United States.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to move on to other high school stuff, like high school graduation?
Of course, yeah. I mean, like, this is like one of the things that I mentioned that could potentially cost you money. Like in high school, when you're a first gen, if you don't know the right people or the right resources or the right scholarships to apply to, you just won't apply. Like, this is why it's very important to know the resources that you have in your high school, including your counselors, including, like, when we went to high school. In my high school, they had what we call the career services lady. This is, or man, this is the place where, or if you want a job, like, you could talk to them. They also have like resources with like scholarships. They have connections with universities and everything like that. So you just need to know the right people and the right places and the right resources. So applying for scholarships, applying for grants, applying for loans, you just need to know where to go. So this is a important one. In high school, you and I both had really good mentors that helped us and guided us throughout this process, like applying for loans, applying through, like, even to go to college. We have people that helped us, guide us through that. But if you don't know as a first gen, that's a huge struggle.
Yeah. And I think that's where the role of like the school counselor comes into play so much.
Right.
Is like they really need to help guide you. And unfortunately, what I've found is that a lot of the school counselors are not well versed in working with first gen students.
No.
They don't know the struggles that we go through. They
Right.
don't know
The life experiences. Yeah.
Right. They don't know. Like, I'll give you I think like the most real example that has happened recently. I have a high school senior who has not been able to apply for her financial aid.
Right.
Because she's documented and her parents are not.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, the school's like, well, we already helped her with getting her account set up and getting her PIN. And we talked about how she could get her parents her PIN. And I'm like, yes, I know you did. But it goes beyond that.
Right.
Because she needs help filling out the application step by step. And, you know, that's a scenario where the counselor and I did not see eye to eye, because to her, she had already helped the student. She's like, well, I'm not going to hold her hand and do it with her. And I was explaining how when she's going into this FAFSA application,
it's deeper than that.
It's asking for her parents' social security. It will not allow her to continue if she does not put in a social security.
Exactly.
I've Googled, I've looked everywhere to see how we can bypass that.
You can't.
And I have not figured out a way to do it. And, you know, she was the point of contact for her school regarding FAFSA.
Yeah.
If she doesn't know, who's going to know?
Yeah.
You call FAFSA and you try to get them on the phone, they never pick up.
No.
They never pick up the phone.
Yeah. Because the reason why you need, like, your families or your parents or guardians social security, because that's the information that they use to calculate the expected family contribution, this ECF. That ECF, expected family contributions, that's the one that they use to determine how much money they can give you. And so just because, as a counselor, just because you've done the checklist items, you've opened an account for the student, you've created a login and password and everything like that, that is not actually helping them fill out the FAFSA.
No.
It's way deeper than that. It's way more work than that, especially like what you were explaining, getting that detailed information from the parent or guardian. It's crazy. As a first gen, those are struggles that you don't know that you don't know.
Exactly. And, you know, and I think when it comes to FAFSA, everyone's scenario is different. And so, therefore, you know, they all cases will have like other difficulties, you know, but I know for her, it's been such a struggle. And this is something that we need. You know, her school's asking her, she can't confirm that she's going to this university, which is her first choice.
Right.
She can't commit to it until she fills out her FAFSA.
Of course.
And we're stuck on that.
Because again, that FAFSA is what the school uses to send you that financial aid package.
Exactly.
So if they don't have that information, they can't really offer you a financial aid package to recruit you to come to the university.
Well, and as a student,
it's like a domino effect.
So because she's a student with a visual impairment, also as that, she has there's certain organizations, other programs that will help cover other tuition costs,
right,
that financial aid may not cover. And so but in order to receive it, she needs to prove that
Right.
she applied for financial aid and
Yeah.
that she was either accepted or denied. Like it's the first part of the
Yep.
process,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
these organizations are like, well, we can't help her
It's an entry
until she
ticket. Yeah.
has this done.
Yep.
And I feel, I've helped her. I printed out a paper copy because I was like, let's just mail it in.
Right.
I think we're in a spot now where she's good. I don't have confirmation that she's turned it in. I'm hoping she did. I'm going to check in on her this coming week.
Yeah.
To make sure
I hope
it's
so.
taken care of because graduation is May 30th.
Speaking of graduation, let's talk about high school graduation, the length.
Oh, why are they so long? Why?
I don't know, because I guess they want to bring every successful person that graduated from that high school to come and do a speech. And so that's another thing. If you're going to high school graduation, you better have like a big meal before you go, because it's your entire day.
Literally, it's so long.
Yeah.
And think about it, like everyone's name is called, and I think it depends on the size of your school, right? Like your graduating class.
Yeah.
But it's going to feel so long between all the speeches and everyone talking and all the things. It's going to be so long. And you want to make sure you eat before it. And you're probably going to need a meal after. And honestly, if you can sneak in a snack, sneak in one.
Exactly. All right. So that's high school. And then you go to college, obviously. Even when you get to college, you still have to, the thing that you have to navigate, starting with orientation.
Oh, I'm a huge proponent of going to orientation.
Yes.
You need to attend your college orientation.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's going to be probably like a day or two long, depending on the school. And yes, it's like stuff that you're like, do I really need to know this? Yes, you do. And the reason why is because they will help set you up to figure out, like, a lot of times you can chat with the academic counselors that will help you decide what your class schedule should be based on your interested major. And then additionally, you'll get to sign up for those classes because they will walk you through how you need to sign up for these classes.
Yes.
And if you are getting financial aid, where is the financial aid office if I have any questions, or any questions regarding admission, or any questions regarding anything you can think of will be at this orientation.
And they get to show you spots around the campus as well.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and it's important, especially the part where you just mentioned where they help you sign up for classes. The reason why that's important, because if you don't get the help from them, you will end up signing up for classes with times that you don't necessarily like. But if you sign up with them, at least you get to select, you get choices of the class time that you could potentially like, rather than waiting until you get back to your dorm and selecting bad times.
Yeah, that's really important. I remember when I signed up for orientation, I signed up for one of the later ones during the summer. And then I remember that by the time I was like registering for classes, I didn't have a lot of choices in terms of
the class time. Yeah.
Like I ended up with some classes that were like at 8. I think my first one that I had signed up for was like a 7 something
a.m.
Yeah. And think about, like, I don't live on campus. I'm commuting.
Yeah.
And I'm not
you're not
driving.
A morning person. Yeah.
I'm not driving.
Right.
I am taking a shuttle. I'm driving to another campus to take a shuttle that will take me to the campus.
Oh my God.
What was I thinking?
Exactly.
I thought I could make a 7:30. So then I registered for that originally, and then like I think like a week or a couple days later, I went back and I registered for a later class, but it was still like a pretty early class. It was like an 8:30 or something like that. Right. And at the time I was like, well, that, it's fine. It's early, but it should be okay. I kind of wanted to set up my schedule where I could have my classes all in the morning, and then I was commuting to campus, so I wanted to like be home in the afternoons to work, because my work was closer to my home, not to campus, and to do all the things.
Right.
Luckily it worked out, but after that one semester I never again signed up for that early of a class. I think the earliest I would do was like 9 a.m. or 10:30 was my favorite time to start.
That's why it's very important to go to that orientation and sign up for classes with your class, meaning like the class that you come in with. That's like your fellow students. It's very important. In addition to that, also going to office hours. How important is going to office hours?
Very,
This
very
is something
important.
that first generation people don't know.
Yeah. So I actually did not know that like you should go to your office hours, but I had a really good professor, an English 101 professor,
Right.
who she would make these comments, and they were never directed at the good kids, but I think the good kids are the ones that took it to heart,
yeah,
and decided, oh, I'm gonna go to office hours,
and they became excellent kids.
Yes. So she, we were like, oh gosh, probably like week 6 or 7 of classes, and she made a comment. She's like, if you haven't came to see me for office hours, I expect to see you in like the next week, right?
Yeah.
So I immediately sign up for office hours because I'm like, oh my god,
She's talking about me.
talking about me. I show up and she's like, really, you're the second good person that shows up. It's always the bad ones, the ones you are talking to that don't come. And I was like, oh well, I thought you were directing it at me. But I really was glad that I had that experience.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you need to be struggling to show up to office hours. Office hours is a time where they can get to know you a little better, and you can get to know the professor a little better as well.
Yeah.
And then also I feel like it helps them understand you a little more in terms of like why you may have done an assignment a certain way.
Right.
Or in English 101, I remember I was struggling a lot with my writing. And at that specific office hour, I shared with my professor that I felt like my writing wasn't as nice as the writing of my fellow peers, and I thought that was because English was not my first language. I felt like I was still, learning to use bigger words. And she was like, no, you're overthinking it. Your writing is fine. She did recommend that I go to use a resource that we had on campus, the Writing Center.
Yeah.
And once I did that, I became a much better writer. I felt like I was talking at a college level versus like a high school, or even like middle school level. Like I felt like my writing wasn't as like great.
Your vocabulary.
Exactly, because my vocabulary wasn't as big. And so that really helped. I wouldn't have known about that resource if my college professor hadn't shared it, and if she hadn't done it during office hours. Yeah. And it made a difference, and I propose it. I think we should all do it at least one time for every class. Yes. If you need to do it more than once, trust me, that like professors are there and they get paid to be there during their office hours. So that's what they're there for. Right.
It's literally part of your contract, which is also called a syllabus. It's part of your contract that the professors, they have to schedule a time where they are actually sitting in the office welcoming you to come to the office to talk with them one-on-one. Just like what Yazmin is saying, it provides that context around the person, you, who you are as a person, what's your story, and how you show up in the class. So when you're writing something, they can put a name to the face. This is who the person is. Literally, this is probably just me, but I've had professors where I've gone to so many office hours, and when it comes to like grading time towards the end of the semester, the difference between having an A- and just a regular A is because I went to the office hours. Yeah. They ended up giving me just a regular A rather than giving me an A- because they can bump it up. They have the authority to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just takes building that relationship and, sharing with them your struggles. And when they see that you are trying, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. These are important things. Man, I wish for me and you, we're fortunate that we knew a lot of these things because of the program that we went through. But I wish every first generation college student or just young adults should know these tips.
I feel like even though we had the support though, it still takes a certain kind of drive to go and seek the support.
Absolutely.
Because yes, through EIP, the early identification program, we may have learned some of these things from
Yes.
like our mentors, from other people
You
in the
need the
program.
initiative. Yeah.
But you need that initiative.
Yeah.
Like when you're in college, no one's going to take you by the hand and say, come on, sweetie, let's go to office hours. Let's go make sure your grades are okay.
Right.
You need to be the one that says, like, I think I might be struggling. Or, hey, even if I'm not struggling, it won't hurt to do a quick check-in with my professor to make sure I'm on the right page.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. Yeah. It's simple as that.
But no one's going to take you by the hand.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're sick, you send an email to the professor. They can like, okay, this is Yazmin sending me an email. She's sick. She can't make it today. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But professors have students in their class. Like they have no idea who those students are because those students, first of all, they only show up like once a month and they have no relationship with the professor. And at the end of the semester, they want the professors to be kind and gentle with them. So please take advantage of these resources.
I like the professors that would call you out.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Not that I was ever called out, but I would see my peers be called out. I remember one time I was sitting like in the front row and the professor was like talking to another peer and she was like, what week are we on now? And I was like, this is week 10. And she was like, it's week 10. You need to get it together.
Ooh.
You've been in college for 10 weeks now, and it's not all about parties.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
Your
that
professors, savages.
She was a really good look, she was a mom.
Of course.
Of course. She was a mom, and she cared about us. Like, she was a mom, and she wanted the best for us.
Of course.
And
she understands it's not,
her.
Yeah, college isn't cheap, so.
No, and it's not all parties and games.
Exactly.
And this girl was clearly going through, like, her freshman year party mode.
Yeah.
Not going to do my work.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You're going to be right back here.
Man. All right, let's move on from college.
All right.
We're getting too excited about college.
Do you have anything regarding college, like graduation? Because we talked about high school graduation.
Yeah, college graduation. I mean, college graduation, the thing is, like, people can, like, after they call your name, you could just leave if you want to.
You're not supposed to.
But you're not supposed to. It's the same, too, like, in terms of, like, length. Because they bring, like, people to do, like, these commencement speeches and all that stuff. And then they also have, like, depending on your college, meaning, like, your degree or department, they also have, like, fellow students do, like, speeches, those type of things.
I think it's good to can you clarify though the difference between commencement and then your program,
your
department graduation?
Yeah. So usually like you have your department graduation, like
where you get your major from.
Exactly. Like let's say School of Public Health. Everybody that does public health, they have their own graduation. That's usually a little bit smaller than like the big graduation. Like if it's a winter graduation, for example, in December, you have your entire school graduating that December. And that graduation, that's where they do commencement speeches. That's where they bring like a guest speaker from outside, usually an alumni of the university that graduated maybe 10, 15 years before you. They are successful. They bring them to share like tips or advice as you graduate and go on to lead your life as a graduated college person. That's where they have commencement speeches. Those are long speeches. Sometimes they're short, depending on the person, how they're feeling themselves that day. And then you have your department graduation. Usually those are smaller graduations. They tend to have like the dean of student or like your chairperson and the department chair. They give speeches. They can even ask your fellow student to also give speeches during that graduation. That's what I understand. It's been a while.
Well, in commencement, your department will stand up, right? Like School of Education, that was the one for me.
Right.
We'd stand up when they said, mine was a winter one. Like, no.
We graduated in May.
Oh, yeah. You're
Summer.
Right. For undergrad.
Right.
It wasn't May, it was the summer. And so college, I think, I don't remember what I was at this point.
Right.
I was psychology. So
right.
Whatever department that was, We all stood up and, the people clapped for us.
Yeah.
Commencement, you're not walking the stage.
Right.
Nobody's handing you anything. It's not your opportunity for pictures because it's a bigger ceremony.
Yeah.
Think of it as like the whole school's invited, so they're planning on not all the school attending.
Right.
And then the department one is when they do call your name and then you get to walk the stage.
It's
do
smaller.
the photo opportunities.
Yeah.
It's considered smaller, but it's still pretty large because this is the one that everybody wants to attend. Everybody who's graduating as a psychology major or whatever major you have, everybody's going to want to attend that one.
And that's when you bring your parents and friends and guardians and everybody that you care about, love you, your support system, your community, and everything.
Literally. You bring everyone.
That's when you bring your gang.
Yes.
Right up behind you. That's right.
Yes.
That's when they say your name, everybody, your whole village stands up and yell back at the mic. That's how they do it. You go big or you go home.
Period.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two big differences between the two, and they may not fall on the same day.
No.
You just kind of have to check your school calendar.
Yep. The school will give you information as you get closer to. Oh, another thing, because we're talking about graduation, you actually have to apply to graduate.
Which is wild.
Yes.
Why do you apply?
You have to, like, after you meet all your criteria, you've satisfied all your classes, your credit hours and everything, you actually have to apply in order to graduate.
And you have like a deadline, like you need to do it by a certain date in order for your name to appear on the book.
Yes.
that you get with all the graduates' names.
And I think they force you to apply because they can figure out who owes the school and who doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you still owe money, you're not going to be allowed to apply to graduate.
Don't have any hold on your accounts.
Can't have any type of hold.
The same thing for high school too. If you have hold on your accounts, like say you get a book from the library and you didn't return the book, they put a hold on your account. Mm-hmm. Or if you didn't pay for the cap and gown, they put a hold on your account.
Meals, like if you purchase lunch.
So watch for those holds.
Yes, you want to make sure that all those things are covered before.
Yeah, take care of all of those things for high school and university. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk briefly about like being an adult. After you graduated, you're actually making some money and you actually want to enjoy your life. What are some of the things that as first generation immigrants should know?
Adulting sucks.
That's it. It's the end of the episode.
It's the end of the episode. Guys, don't grow up. Stay young.
That's right. Forever young. That's a fact. Big fact. I'm thinking of like one. Several, but we're going to just briefly talk about a few, right? Like, for example, you go to a restaurant. They want you to give them 15 to 20%, even if the food isn't that good.
Like as a tip?
Yeah.
Okay.
15 to 20% of the total amount of your bill. Mm-hmm. That's just ridiculous to me. Like, I should be able to choose. I mean, I understand like waiters and waitresses and everything, they don't make as much money, but that's the restaurant's job to actually compensate them well.
It's like 18% is like the ideal number.
Now it seems like 18 is average. But before it used to be around 15%. But now every restaurant, even some restaurants you go to now, it's like the gratuity is like embedded in your in your check. Like,
yeah, you do have to check, especially for large parties, like parties over a certain number of people.
Yeah, exactly. So don't give them double tip unless you want to.
I had a high school teacher who told us her tip and trick on not tipping, but on going out. Mm-hmm. She said, so she had this system where like every restaurant that was between A and let's say D, okay?
Okay.
Restaurants named A through D, she would say that her birthday was in January of whatever day her birthday actually was. So let's say the 12th, January 12th. And then restaurants with E through G, she would say her birthday was February the 12th, okay? And she did this for every month of the year, alphabetically. And she said she did it that way because that meant that year round she's getting those like discounts that are like, Red Lobster, you get it in like June.
Well, Red Lobster is going out of business now.
Okay,
So
I know. I said
R.I.P. to Red Lobster.
I thought about it after I said it. But like all the restaurants that she enjoyed going to, she said, I'm constantly getting coupons from all these different restaurants. So
Wow.
when it's time to go out, I just be like, oh, what coupons did I get this week? Oh, let's go here.
Wow.
And that made her life easier.
Hacks.
And then she would present the coupon.
Right.
And I guess if you're getting a discount, so technically the total of your bill is going to be less.
Right.
And so you can tip more, or I guess it evens out.
Yeah. I guess it balances out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
I
life
thought
hack.
it was an interesting system.
Yeah.
I never got around behind it.
Yeah.
What I started doing recently is I lie about my birthday. Like some companies, I say, I think I left off on like February 17th.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, the next time I sign up for one, it'll be March 17th. But I don't think I've gotten around to signing up for anything else.
All right. Don't lie, okay? Just keep it simple. Go to the restaurant that you can afford. Use a budget. Stay with your budget. Don't live above your means. So that way you don't have to lie.
True.
My wife doesn't lie. She's good people, actually.
She
was just surviving.
Celebrate every month. Every month I'm aging.
Right. Anything else you got about adulting? What about as a working professional? Like some of the things that like for example, like salary negotiations. Do you have like a story behind that? Like, like in our culture, you're supposed to be grateful, be appreciative because you're working, you have a job. Mm-hmm. But as a first gen, we can actually negotiate our salaries because our counterparts actually do that.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I recently read in a book talking about like salary negotiation, and one of the big points the book brought up is that a lot of times as first generation students, kids, people, we tend to just be grateful, right? We say like, I'm just grateful to have a job. I'm just happy. I'm making all this money. I'm making more than I've ever made.
Right.
Gosh, I'm making more than my mom ever made in her life, or more than my dad, etc. Right? Because you're in a position that you've never been in before.
Exactly.
But what that does is really we're overworked and underpaid.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's for the same jobs that our peers who are not first generation are also doing.
Right.
And they're making a lot more money for it.
Yes.
Because they're asking for it, because they've been taught how to negotiate.
Right.
And it's a skill that you really do need to learn.
Of course.
Like if you're in a company that's like, a lot of times they'll ask you what is your price?
Yeah.
When you're being
what's your range?
interviewed.
Yeah.
What's your range?
Yeah.
And the reason they say that is because they know that chances are high you're going to lowball yourself.
Yeah.
And they probably have a higher number in mind, but they're not going to tell you that.
No.
They're going to want to pay you less. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's good to do your research, but also it's good to know like other strategies that you can use. Like, let's say they're really stuck on, okay, we can't increase your salary. Okay, but can you add an extra week of leave?
Right.
Can you add, like, what other benefits can you add?
Exactly.
That would kind of even out.
Right.
The monetary compensation, and you want to be well versed in that so you can negotiate what you should be making, and don't be scared to highball yourself.
Yeah,
Just do it.
Of course.
The worst they can do is say no.
Yeah, it's important. When I apply for jobs, usually in the job application, when they ask you, so what's your salary expectation, usually I'll put like negotiable, because I don't want to put, for that reason, I don't want to put a salary that is like lower than like market rate. And so usually I just put negotiable. And the reason why I put that is because when I get to the interview, I want to be able to ask the interviewer or the company, what is a competitive rate for this position? And because they're not supposed to lie to you if you ask them the question. They're supposed to give you the right and correct answer. And so when you get that competitive rate, you can be like, okay, that is that's good for me, or that's too low. Is there, can you increase it? You can ask them. If they can't increase it, they will tell you. If they can, they will. So just know your worth. Know what is important to you in terms of like what are some of the benefit packages that you're interested in. What makes you want to work for this company, and then just go from there. Don't try to undersell yourself, because usually what the employers do is, say for example, you graduate from college and you get a job working at a nonprofit organization. You're making like 35K a year, and now when you're leaving that job to go to the next job, that next job is gonna ask you, what is your previous salary? And you're gonna put 35K to 40K, but the job that you're going to actually pays maybe 50 or 60K. But because you're saying that your previous salary is 35 to 40K, they are going to try to lowball you and get you to closer to 42K instead of paying you 50 to 55K. You see how this works? So that's why you don't just pick a job just because, well, as first generation graduates, we're kind of desperate most of the time. Like, you actually need the money, but you have to be mindful of these tricks and understand them as you go into like job hunting.
Yeah. I think another big thing about finding a job as a first gen student is making sure that you add stuff to your resume.
Yes.
Like, you want to add internships, or you want to add, like, for me as an education student, it was field experience. Like,
Yes.
me doing things in classrooms with kids, because that made me look that made my resume look more appealing. Like, I had at least some experience.
Yes. Volunteering at the church,
Mhm.
volunteering at the mosque, volunteering at community organizations, all of those things. Because as first generation college, the reason why I really love first gens, they always are involved with the community. Like,
Yeah.
every first gen that I know, they are always involved with the community, whether it's working with young people or volunteering at their church, mosque, or whatever the situation is. They are always giving back. That's remarkable.
Yeah. But I think we also have to remember, though, that sometimes being first gen also means you have to work extra, though.
Yes.
And you may not be able to be involved.
Right.
Right? Like, I've seen, like, lately, I've seen kids that graduate with cordless, with no cords.
Right.
Um, and
like,
I want
like the stoles.
yeah, no stoles, no cords,
Yeah.
nothing. And I feel for those kids. Like, I remember graduating high school. I was not involved in a single thing in high school.
Yeah.
I think I signed up for Key Club. I never met any of the requirements and didn't even get any type of cord or anything. I got a cord through one of my classes because it didn't involve me staying after school or doing anything. I couldn't stay after school. I didn't have a ride home.
Right.
I wasn't involved in sports. I wasn't involved in any clubs. I wasn't going to get a cord from anywhere.
Right.
And that's, I was just focused on my grades. But then I also think about the kids who have to work a job, or
Yes.
they have to help a family member. They don't have the ability to stay after school and do any of the
They
things.
have to
or
pay
they have
rent.
to care for their younger siblings.
Yes.
These are all things that come with being first generation that are really hard. And I feel like it's important to recognize the amount of cords you have isn't going to dictate anything about how your life is going to go or how well you're going to succeed as an adult.
Fact.
Because you may have them all and end up doing nothing. And then you may have none and end up being a CEO of a company.
Fact. I mean, good example. We know a lot of valedictorians in high school and college. Sometimes they become successful at the adultinghood, but sometimes you don't hear from them after that.
I personally don't know any of.
Yeah.
I didn't bother keeping
Nah.
keeping, what's the word?
Yeah.
Keeping track.
Keeping track. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't bother keeping track.
Yeah.
It's not like I was friends with them anyway. So,
yeah, I just wanted to add that, the grades or the chords or the stoles does not dictate your future success. So
yeah, not at all. And that goes for high school and college too.
yeah, absolutely.
I think in college you do have more opportunities to get involved.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier because in college, a lot of people are not afraid to be themselves. And I think that's a great thing.
Oh yeah. College is where, is where it's at. You could be yourself. And if you don't find a club that meets your criteria, you can create your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's literally so many organizations on campus.
Yep.
And you can find the one where you belong.
That's right. Or create it.
There you go.
Yep.
Were there any other tips that you had for adults?
That's pretty much it. That's all I had for today in terms of succeeding in as a first gen immigrant.
I'm sure there's some that we're missing.
Oh, there are a bunch
more. If you
more.
can think of any, feel free to send them to us.
Yep, send us comments on this episode. Send us your suggestions so we can add them to this episode on a later time. We can come back to the studio and record a follow-up to this episode. Hey, we doing this for you. So if you help us, we will help you. Suggest your ideas so we can record them.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of How We're Doing It. We want to hear from you. Contact us at hwdipodcast@gmail.com or leave a comment. If you like the show, consider subscribing in order to get notified of new episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again on the next episode.
Mama. Bye-bye.